Okay, Nisambula Vinaka and warm Pacific greetings to everybody. And welcome to this special Pacific Regional Hub, our National Heritage and Culture and Climate Resilience session. Thank you so much for being part of this COP26 event. Wherever you are logging in from, we greet you warmly from the beautiful islands of Fiji. And so to kickstart our session, we're going to start with a beautiful song called Nuando. And I hope that you will enjoy this. What a beautiful song to start this amazing session. And we have a very amazing lineup of speakers who will be part of this session. Before I introduce them to all of you, I would like to take this time to acknowledge the Director of the National Trust of Fiji, Elizabeth Erasito, who is part of this session, and we want to acknowledge the work that her and her team does for Fiji. Vinaka Vakalevu, Madam, for all the work that you do with your team, and just acknowledging that what we will be hearing today is the result of the work that the National Trust of Fiji does for the nation, not only for Fiji, but also for Oceania. Also acknowledging the sponsors for this session, the ADB and the GIZ organizations for allowing this session to take place today. And before I do the formal introductions of our speakers, I took the time to find out the meaning of resilience. And in terms of the meaning of resilience, it has some really interesting definitions. So one of it goes like this: the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. And also another word that comes with it is toughness. And I think the projects that we will be hearing today resembles those key descriptions. And it also continues to say that resilience is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. And being resilient does not mean that people don't experience stress, emotional upheaval, and suffering. But there's something here that I really enjoyed when it says that resilient people tap into their strengths and support systems to overcome challenges and work through problems. What a wonderful way to kickstart this session, and keeping in mind those beautiful words that describe the word resilience. So welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Resilience Hub. So the 5 speakers that we have today, we will travel over to the beautiful province of Naitasiri. We have Vilikesa Masimbalavu, who hails from the village of Nandakuni on the Tikina of Waimaro. Vilikesa is an ornithologist. He's also a conservator and also a bird guide working in the Soviet Basin, which is a very special place in Fiji. Welcome, Vilikesa. Number 2, we have Elia Nakoro from the Fiji Museum. He hails from Vatukuda village, district of Vaturova, the beautiful province of the Kaunrove. Elia is the manager of the archaeology and gazetting department at the Fiji Museum. And by the way, Vilikesa, who I introduced earlier, is aligned to the National Trust of Fiji. Our 3rd speaker hails from the beautiful village of Uruone on the island of Vonombalavu that we often call the Long Island of Fiji. And he's vasu to the beautiful village of Kulukulu on the province of Nanronga in the Sigatoka area. So Jason Tutani, he's the park manager of the Sigatoka Sand Dunes, which is a national park guided and managed by the National Trust of Fiji. Welcome, Jason. Our 4th speaker is Mereoni Mataika. And Mereoni, she's a service manager, corporate social responsibility, which is part of her role at the Shangri-La hotel on the island of Yanuda on the province of Nanronga. And she does a lot of work in the project called Heritage in Young Hands. And that will be part of a presentation today. And welcome, Mereoni. Okay, and our last speaker for today, last but not least, is Mrs. Suliana Sendis from the island of Nomuka in the Kingdom of Tonga. But she lived in Levuka on the island of Ovalau, province of Lomaiviti, for 67 years. So she has those 67 years of experience that she will be sharing with us today. So a warm welcome. So can we please clap wherever you're from to welcome all our 5 speakers who will be sharing their amazing work with us today. Welcome, welcome again. So now the spotlight goes over to our first speaker, Mr. Vilikesa Masimbalavu, who will be sharing with us some key points that he wants to share from his project in the Soviet Basin.
Everyone, Vili Masimbalavu. I'm also a landowner from the Soviet Basin, and I'm so proud to be working together with the National Trust of Fiji to be able to conserve the biodiversity that actually exists in the Soviet Basin. My talk this morning will be regarding the 8 years of the lease that the conservation lease that has actually happened for us to be able to protect the Soviet Basin protected area. I would like to begin by saying that Fiji is an island nation. When we say an island nation in the South Pacific, many people will think that the Pacific is just a distant backwaters without any great need for conservation. But the actual reality is that islands like Fiji is only 3% of the global area, only 3%. But within that 3%, we have 15 to 20% endemism. That's including plants, birds, reptiles, and mammals. And also the shocking reality about this 3% of the global land area, which is called islands, which includes Fiji, is the fact that 64% of the recent extinction has happened on islands. And not only that, 45% of the critically endangered species is actually happening right now in island. I would like to say that, to be able to say this, I really thank the government of Fiji in its effort to be able to protect the 16,300 hectares of undisturbed, pristine, lowland rainforest called the Soviet Basin. Soviet Basin is right in the center of Fiji. It is right in the center of a contiguous forest from the north, which has Nuando. Nuando is very important because it has the aquifer for Fiji water, where they're getting their water from and selling around the world. And then we have Mandarivatu and Monosavu, which has two of Fiji's main or biggest river systems, the Sigatoka River, as well as the Rewa River. And then we have the Soviet Basin after that, which is now been protected, which means that when Fiji protects the Soviet Basin, it is actually protecting most of Fiji's endemic species, as well as the threatened species that we do have in terms of all the, for example, birds, reptiles, mammals. And to be able to conserve all these beautiful species, you will see those are some of the endemic birds that are found in the Soviet Basin. It's so beautiful, it's so colorful. These birds are some are big, like parrots and pigeons, and they would like to fly bigger distances. And so the 16,300 hectares of virgin forest within Soviet Basin will be able to accommodate the big birds as well as the small ones, including all the other endemics, which are reptiles and mammals and plants. And so this rainforest is right in the middle of Fiji. And it is very, very critical for what we're talking about in terms of resilience. We know that climate change is coming. Climate change actually is not coming, it's actually happening right now. And natural disasters, the occurrence of natural disasters will be increasing, as well as the intensity. But to be able to have a forest around us, that will mitigate, that will minimize the impact of natural disasters like flood and hurricanes. So forests are very, very critical in maintaining biodiversity, as well as act as a buffer to be able to protect our life from the impact of climate change that is actually happening. And in the Fiji context, to be able to work with a particular piece of land, we have to work with the community. Every community, every land in Fiji is communally owned. So to be able to work with the Soviet Basin, there are 4 villages that we need to work together with that are landowners to the 16,300 hectares that the government has been able to protect under the National Trust of Fiji. So the idea is this: if the community are living under the national poverty line, they will impact, they will affect the biodiversity and the forests that we would like to conserve, because communities, landowners depend on the forest for their livelihood. And so if they are not helped, they will continue to affect the forest that we would like to conserve. So it is very, very critical to work together with the landowners. As I've already mentioned, there are actually 4 villages that are landowning communities to the Soviet Basin. And some of the things that we do to be able to work together with the community is the fact that this 99-year conservation lease arrangements that has started in 2012 is a co-managed approach lease. co-managed in the sense that the community are involved in the planning, in the implementation stage, as well as the evaluation stage. They are involved in every part of the process, so that they have a sense of belonging. They have a sense of responsibility to be able to look after the natural resources they do own, even though it's leased out to national trust, but still it remains to the community. And so some of the biodiversity loss that has happened historically in the world has actually happened in least developed countries, even though they are least developed. But as I already mentioned, that community rely in terms of livelihood on the forest. So one of the ways in which we work together with the community is to involve them in all the process, and the other one is to try to work together with them, establishing some income generating projects. For example, we supply planting materials for whatever crops they would like to plant. We help them with their fence to be able to keep their cattle, because the cattle is affecting every farm in say a particular village, and we help them with aquaculture. We help them to be able to sustainably manage their soil, sustainable land management, because most of these farmers are actually planting on sloping land. So sustainable land management is key to be able to control soil erosion, so that their future generation will still be using the same piece of soil that their fathers are using at this time. And so we do socioeconomic survey to be able to understand the community. And then we also do biodiversity survey to be able to understand what is in the forest. To be able to do those two, socioeconomic survey and biodiversity survey, we're able to know the community of people and the community of biodiversity that we will be working together with. And there is an endowment trust fund that enables the conservation of Soviet Basin. At this point, I would like to thank Conservation International, working together in partnership with National Trust of Fiji for more than 10 years in establishing this 99-year lease, conservation lease for Soviet Basin to be protected. I would also like to thank the donors, Global Conservation Fund and Fiji Water, for contributing to this trust fund that has been established with HSBC Bank to be able to pay for conservation. We're paying lease to the community for the next 99 years. In other words, this Soviet Basin will be there for 99 long years, and there will be sustainable financing through this endowment fund that has been established. And there is also opportunity for ecotourism, which could also generate some income to the communities that lives around the Soviet Basin, because Soviet Basin is so beautiful. Its birds and the scenery is so beautiful, and we have big rivers that could allow for rafting and tubing, and as well as fishing. Tracking and all those things, but that it's not been explored at the moment, but we are hoping to be able to include that into our work. And finally, I would like to, if you see that that picture there, is it a picture of a sunrise, or is it a picture of a sunset? It's a very interesting picture. It was taken in Levuka, Ovalau, while I was doing a bird survey in the island of Ovalau. What I would like to say is this: it is very, very critical to save Fiji's environment, to save Fiji's non-renewable resources, because once we lose a species, we lose it forever, because species cannot be manufactured in a factory. These are non-renewable resources, and it's so critical for Fiji to protect it. So it gives us the pressure, working with National Trust, to be able to see that these species are conserved. So it is important right now to talk about the impact of climate change that is coming, because extinction on islands, 40 to 60% of extinction on islands are just rats alone, invasive species. Climate change is coming, which can impact it more. And so we need to work together now, government, ministries, NGOs, local communities, to be able to see that conservation happens in Fiji. We will see as National Trust people to see that the Soviet Basin is actually protected. So if we don't discuss it, if we don't work together today, then it's not going to be a sunrise for our future generation. It's going to be a sunset. We need to work together to be able to conserve Fiji's natural resources.
Yes, Vinaka Wakalevu, Turanganeta, for such a powerful presentation and something that is very personal to you, since you are from there, and for sharing it so passionately for many of us. So for the audience, I've put on the chat, if you have any questions or comments, so please feel free to do so. And in the course of the presentation today, I will be happy to field any questions. And also towards the end, when we wrap up, we'll also leave some time aside for questions and comments as well. So Vinaka Pakalev Sara Turanganita for starting our session with a beautiful story from the Soviet Basin. And I do look forward when the border opens, I would love to be on that bamboo raft on that beautiful Vunidilo River to be hosted by our very friendly Turanga Maramanita from the village of Nandakuni in Waimoro. Vinaka Vakalevu Naita Vilkesa. All right, so from our first speaker, since I haven't got any comment or question now, maybe I should leave it and ask if anyone would like to say something or comment or ask really any questions now. I can take a question or comment. Okay. Okay, lovely to see everybody. Welcome to this session. Vinaka Wakalevu. And as I said, you're welcome to make any comments even at the end as well. Write it down on a piece of paper, or also don't be shy to put it on the chat. So Mbula Vinaka, aloha, talofa, malolele, kia ora to everybody who are logging in today. And now we will go over to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Elia Nakoro, who is the manager for archaeology and gazetting at the Fiji Museum. The floor is yours now, Elia. Naka. Elia, you are muted, Ngueka. Okay, just unmute. We want to hear your voice, your beautiful voice. Okay, one more time. Yes.
Okay, it's Mbula Vinaka, everyone, and thank you for tuning in from wherever you are. First of all, I wish to express gratitude to the Pacific Resilience Hub team and the National Trust of Fiji for this opportunity to participate in the COP26 resilience discussions, where I will be talking about building climate resilience of archaeological sites in Fiji. So an archaeological site under the legislation that governs our work, it provides a whole list of site types, but simply it refers to any trace of humans from past epochs. Yeah? So this map is just to assist our friends from abroad on the location of Fiji in the Pacific and a glance of what the Fiji Museum building looks like. But before I continue, let me introduce myself. I'm Elena Corro, and I've spent 15 years with the Fiji Museum, where we undertake archaeological research, surveys, and documentation for the entire islands. So I lead a team of 4 experienced personnel, even though I have a young, energetic team the current manpower is insufficient to thoroughly cover the 300+ islands. So our focus right now is mainly on the protection of archaeological sites from development threats and documenting sites as requested by communities for the sake of current and future generations. So while the research bit of it, if we have time and depending on the urgency, we are able to do archaeological research excavation ourselves. Otherwise, research excavation is done in collaboration with overseas research institutes. So there are some archaeological sites that are impacted by climate change, which is beyond our control. And the way we go about it is to try and capture and record the sites as best as we can. I will talk about this in great detail later on. I want to give you an idea of the types of archaeological sites that we have here in Fiji. So unlike the pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu, the Skara Brae, the Stonehenge, Angkor, the Easter Islands, and the other renowned sites. Yeah? So most of these are built using resources which are solid, durable, and are able to withstand climate elements to a certain extent. But however, in Fiji, and I guess in most of the Pacific Islands, most of our archaeological sites are fragile in nature, as it is made out of earth. For example, we have ancient house foundations, we have sacred mounds, and fortification ditches. So some of the ancient house foundations, even though the fringes are aligned with pile stones, the stones they're stacked upon each other without the use of any adhesive to hold the structure. So over time, this would collapse or displaced by wild pigs or extreme natural events such as heavy downpour, uprooting of trees, and fallen branches. So most of these type of sites, they're located in remote areas, rugged mountainous terrain where access is difficult. So it is hard to monitor. So we have numerous ring ditch fortifications, and all of which have no solid structure to support the edges of the ditches and causeways. So these are prone to erosion. So in the photo, you can see that the edges they are curved and the trenches are shallow. Traditional burials in the form of burial mounds, these are also not exempted from environment threats. Similarly, in the hills, stone wall barricade of hill fortifications, even though it can withstand climatic elements, but it is unstable as stones are just stacked upon each other. We have rock art in many parts of Fiji, but the outstanding one is a painting on an island called Vatulele, where color pigments were used there. So over the years, the pigments are beginning to fade. However, this site has been well documented by researchers. Other places where rock art has been reported from, it uses charcoal, and most of these have disappeared due to humidity. The other form of rock art is called petroglyph or rock engravings, which also appear in several parts of Fiji. These as well have been impacted by natural elements as well. Yeah? So what I'm trying to allude to is that Fiji's cultural heritage are prone to threats of extreme weather conditions. Climate change will unavoidably affect the world's archaeological sites through increasing temperatures, changing in humidity cycles, and increasing frequency and severity of extreme events. So in the case of Fiji and other Pacific Islands, we also need to take into account the gradual changes over time, and the extreme climatic events further exacerbate, and further exacerbate already fragile and dilapidated the state of archaeological sites. The image that I have in front of you on the left, it illustrates the damages left behind by a Category 5 tropical cyclone called Winston in 2016. This is the first ever Cat 5 cyclone that Fiji has ever experienced, where it demolished some of the built heritage of the country, and most probably some of the ancient house foundations and archaeological sites that are in the forest that we have not surveyed. So the photo on the left shows some of the heritage buildings that were affected. This was the first leprosarium facility in the Pacific, and unfortunately, these heritage buildings, the architectural structure were not documented prior to the cyclone. So even though there were books published about the life on the island, together with old photographs, it was impossible to reconstruct the heritage buildings. But what we can preserve are the remnants of the built heritage of what was once the leprosarium of the Pacific. So this would be mainly for site attraction and also a way where descendants of those that contracted leprosy will be able to have a connection to the island. So still on the impacts of Winston, 2 years after the event, our team went on an expedition in our attempt to survey some of the sites in the jungle. This was through a climate change project with the government, which looks at the establishment of forest reserves. So numerous attempts to access ancient villages proved futile due to fallen trees blocking access. So until today, we still do not know the state of those archaeological sites in the affected areas. The other two photos clearly illustrate the threat of sea level rise and coastline retreat. So you'll see that a total of about of at least 10 cement barriers, which were once on dry land, submerged underwater during high tide. So this is the case for most cemeteries on outlying islands and coastal dwellers on the two main islands. So similarly, in the highlands, where our first speaker is from, and other parts of Fiji, heavy downpour and flooding, it threatens archaeological sites that are situated close to waterways. So there are other types of archaeological sites, but these are the ones that are vulnerable to extreme climatic conditions. Right? So we talk about resilience, adaptation, and mitigation measures of archaeological sites. In the case of Fiji, this may only apply to certain types of sites, such as rock cut and upright stones, while the majority of archaeological sites in Fiji, which are made of earth, those which I've alluded to in the beginning, they do not stand a chance. So given the nature of these vulnerable archaeological sites, apart from adaptation and mitigation, I believe documentation is probably the only option, which is what the team here in Fiji has tirelessly been undertaking. We try to document archaeological sites as best as we can. We talk to the community elders, record their stories. We even train the locals on how to identify archaeological sites when they're in the forest, training them as well on the preservation and maintenance of the sites, and also how to survey and record the sites, given that we lack the manpower. So we have undertaken a total of 4 provincial trainings on how communities can implement surveying methods. And we also provided them with surveying tools. So we believe that before the archaeological sites are ruined, we hope that at least we have them properly documented before it disappears. So when we conduct our survey and documenting our sites, these are some of the results of the types of data we derive from our surveys. Most of these are done using freehand sketches, especially when our GPS, the reception is not good. Also, because we do not have sufficient time to spend with the communities, the sites are also difficult to access, and numerous sites to map for one particular community. We usually apply traditional surveying methods to try and capture everything. So through the years, we have managed to document a total of at least 2,000 archaeological sites, and we store all this information using a GIS database. So we have covered about, I would say, less than a quarter of the total number of villages in the country. So there is still a lot more of archaeological sites to record and survey. So this is one of the great challenges we face: manpower versus spatial coverage versus threats of climate change, together with the threats of development as well. So finally, I thank you for your time, and I hope the presentation was comprehensive. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them later on. Naka.
Nice. Vinaka Makalevu Elia for sharing with us the amazing work that your team are doing at the Fiji Museum. I know it's not easy job to do, but you're always working hard in with your team in making sure that things are done according to what you can be able to do. So congratulations again from all of us from the work that Neta Wilkesta, does for the National Trust and now with the Fiji Museum. So I will look at the audience if anyone has any comments or questions for Elia. And thank you, Elia, for putting your email there as well on your last slide. So for those who are wanting to contact the Fiji Museum or support the work that they do as well, please, Elia, I can see there on the last slide, their phone number if you're in Fiji. You can also visit the Fiji Museum website and see the work that they do. They're also very active on social media, on Facebook. You can follow some of the amazing projects that the team at the Fiji Museum do all the time. So that's Elia's email there at the bottom, if some of you would like to get in touch with him at a later date. Yeah, so Vinaka for that, Elia. But I think I have a question for you. Is that okay, Elia?
Sandulu Tarisi.
And I think this is a question for you and also Neta Wilkesa. So Neta Wilkesa, you're not excluded from this question. So feel free to answer as well from the Soviet Basin experience. Elia, I was just going to say about the training of the local people. You mentioned that you take the survey tools and you go out into the villages to train the locals. How has been the feedback like from the villages that you've worked with? And the same question I will pose to Wilkesa for any of the work that you do in Neta Siri, Neta Wilkesa, in terms of training the young people of Waimaro or Nantakuni. So we'll start first with Elia.
So the training that we conducted was, I think it was 2 years ago. The feedback from the trainees and the provincial communities, it was good. In fact, they realized that it was an important activity for them because most of the archaeological sites are beginning to disappear through what I've just said in my presentation. So most of them felt that it was a crucial part of preserving and preserving the sites. And also one of the things that that hindered the work that there was supposed to be a feedback from them where they present their surveys to us. So what hindered that process was the follow-up. But some of the communities, they had the initiative and they presented their work for us to have a look. And also at the same time, we had we tried our best to also go out and confirm and ascertain the work that they have done.
Oh, Vinaka Wakalev. What a wonderful way to empower our communities. And I'm sure there's a number of many of the young ones, school leavers who are living in villages, but this way you're able to empower them and give them a skill for them to keep maintaining these sites, because your team, there's only a few of you, but you still have thousands of sites to map all around Fiji. So that's a really good pilot project, Elia. So all the very best, Elia.
Tarisi.
Then maybe Wilkesa, if I can pose the same question to you, Nita.
Yeah, training in the Soviet Basin has been a very big part of our work. We train people on agriculture, we train people on sustainable land management, and for the biodiversity side, we take them together with us and we train them on the various aspects. For example, there's a team for plants, and I have my team on birds. Because every 5 years we're going to monitor the forest, and we will use the community to monitor their own forest, and that's why we are training the community on birds and other biodiversity to be able to do this work in monitoring every 5 years, doing it themselves. So yeah, very much part of what we're doing.
Savinaka Vilkesa. Yeah, what a lovely way of knowing that there's things also happening, in different parts of Fiji, and we are empowering our members of community. For that. Okay, so so thank you so much for our two speakers, Vilkesa and Elia. And now we're gonna move straight into our third speaker, Jason Tutani, Park Manager at the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park in Nandunga. The floor is yours, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you, Tarisi. As we stay here in the sunny province of Nandunga, Muchu Balavina, I'm very happy to be part of this Talanoa session, sharing experiences on the kind of work we do here, especially when it comes to climate change. And here in the Pacific, we know what climate change spells for us. This opportunity gives me a platform to be a voice for the many I represent, the rangers, my organization, the Sigatoka Sand Dunes, its flora and fauna, and the other protected areas around Fiji, and the many people who are part of our interconnected community. So let's dive into my little presentation. Next slide, please. So here's a track map of the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park. I'm showing this map because it's quite telling in how the park is such an important protected area. On one side, you have the vast Pacific Ocean, and on the opposite side, you have the community, both near and far, which also includes the indigenous villages. And plonked right in between these two, you have the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park. Next slide, please. So the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park was established in 1987, and its management handed over to the National Trust of Fiji. It's a protected area of mixed heritage, which means it has a good amount of archaeological history. It's an imposing geophysical landscape, and which is quite rare in our region of the South Pacific. And it's alive with flora and fauna. And lately, popularized as the training ground for Fiji's rugby Olympians. So this has been the general conversation when we talk about the national park. All good stuff, but missing a key element, one that I feel is very pertinent to its future and those associated with it. Okay, could we? So therefore, we need to have a new conversation, which includes the Sigatoka Sand Dunes as an adaptation against the effects of climate change. Because if you stood at the highest point, which is shown clearly in this photo, it becomes more evident the park plays and will continue to play a pivotal role in the future of the Sigatoka region. What we have is a naturally occurring green infrastructure capable of self-regenerating, and right now, our best ally against stronger storms, rising sea, and flooding. But this is seeing the dunes through human eyes, and actually we're underscoring its true worth and vulnerability, because dunes are also dynamic systems, and they too will be impacted by climate change, and already we humans are having an impact. So what do we do? Right now, we protect, we educate, and we also mobilize. Next slide, please. So let's begin with protect. We know that the dunes are sensitive to climate change. The beach teepees you see in the photos are not your typical teepees. They're constructed of driftwood to look like that, and they speckle the dunes beachfront. They were originally built for shade, and through the keen eyes of the rangers, we saw that they too were very good at building for dunes. We now know them as symbols of protection because they represent the kind of work we do at the park. They represent our daily patrols, the monitoring of the park, and doing our due diligence as rangers. They also represent the knowledge we receive from the community, because the beach teepee was the idea. And we know the community has many more stories to share, and we many more lessons to learn. They also represent important community action. It took many hands to build the many beach teepees that line our beachfront. And you can imagine the many conversations that went to and fro between the rangers and the many people who participated in building them. For us also, they represent beacons of hope because they line the beachfront, and any visitor to the park, whether from the nearby community or outside, will always be curious about their presence. And that's how the conversation of climate change starts. And that's how we get people to adapt to this reality. Right now, protecting the dunes helps build resilience within the park and also with the community. Next slide. So now to the educate part. I have a soft spot for education, particularly environmental education. And I've seen firsthand how it can impact people, especially our young. The park is a learning space. It's a huge outdoor classroom, and it gives the opportunity to connect to the natural world and have the conversations about how we Fijians could do better in looking after our island home. The tree hugger you see in the picture, for us, is a conservation symbol. We teach visitors how to make them, and through making them, hopefully we instill lessons that guide their heads, hands, and hearts. So our goal when it comes to education is building on people's environmental consciousness. And this is how we do resilience. We speak to people, we engage them, we remind them, and we also enable them. The park runs several educational programs, and today you will hear about one of them. Next slide, please. Finally, mobilizing our people. The park is ideally situated to start a revolution. I'm just joking here. But our location, though, gives us that added advantage to impact our local community and bring the discussions of climate change to the forefront. And that's how we do it here. We bring the community to the park and get them excited about what they can do now. There are many stakeholders we engage, and we work with them doing activities like reforestation, weed work, nursery work, cleanup campaigns, even yoga, research. We also do outreach. There's also the occasional, frequent media campaigns. We also do volunteerism and throw in some other recreational stuff, or take people on a simple guided walk in the park. Our future lies in how our communities respond, and getting them involved in climate action is always a step in the right direction. Final slide, please. So the question now is, have we done enough? Well, that's a good question. And I'm sure most of you that follow following COP26 and the whole conversation on climate change are probably aware of the latest IPCC report, and it's quite bleak and says that we have a matter of time to shape up or maybe build a real big spaceship and move to another planet. So we seriously have to do more work right now. And I'm looking to rethinking our education system, tapping into more traditional knowledge, being innovative, and grounding our work, in good science, and getting everyone literally to grow more trees and protect our natural world. For the park, I believe our future lies strongly in education, and we are looking to harnessing what Mother Nature gave us. And that's literally a land before the sea. Who knows? We may have Fiji's newest and first ever environmental education center in the next 5 years. Thank you very much.
Jason, for that very moving presentation. And it's just wonderful to see the amount of work you and your team do every day in Sigatoka. And it's lovely to also see the online presence and social media stories that we see as well. So I'm just looking at the comments from our audience. So keep writing your questions and comments to our dear listeners. There's some amazing case studies that our speakers are sharing. Maybe I'll have a question for you, Jason, if that's okay. I've just been enjoying reading your articles online through the media, the mainstream media, in the newspaper. And I know that one of the key actions you do is educate. What actually encouraged you to start writing your story in your personal column in the newspaper, Jason? And why do you think it's important to do that?
Okay, so the writing stories in the newspaper was sort of my form of soft activism. And because, I work in such a wonderful place, basically every day I'm always having an adventure, really good adventure. And there's a lot of stories, a lot of good stories that, that I really want to share with the, with people. And, and some of these stories, I hope when people, read the stories, they can understand that we can do a lot of simple things at home, to look after our environment, or even participate in the general conversation about what's happening around us. Yeah. So these personal stories are just my way of how do I say, encouraging people to be a little bit more environmentally conscious, and and take action.
Wow, that's a really good word that I learned today, a soft activism. And I'm sure that's something that all of us in the audience will take from the amazing work you do. And I really love the last slide as well, with the involvement of our young people. So Vinakavakalevu to you and your team again for involving our young ones in, they will be our future. What a way to involve them now, rather than later. So Vinakavakalevu Sara. For that, Jason. Okay, so Vinakavakalevu for your beautiful story from the Sigatoka Sand Dunes. So for those in the audience, so we have two more speakers that are lined up for this afternoon for this session. So now we're going to travel over to the Shangri-La Hotel on the island of Yanuda, and let us welcome Meroni Mataika. So Meroni Mataika is a service manager, corporate social responsibility, and she will be sharing with us her work with Heritage in Young Hands. Nakawakalevu Meroni.
Vinaka Tarisi, thank you so much. Muchagala and Bula Vinaka. My name is Meroni Mataika. I am the CSR manager here at the Shangri-La Yanuda Island Resort in Sigatoka. With traditional links already mentioned by Tarisi, I'm from the beautiful islands of Natoloa, Neirai, located in the Lomaiviti province. It gives me such great pleasure to be part of this panel, and I'm very humbled to be amongst these wonderful group of people who are at the steering wheel for heritage conservation here in Fiji. It has been such a privilege also to be able to work in collaboration with the National Trust of Fiji through the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park, and more so, thank you for allowing us to be able to share our voice on this forum. I am here to share the story of our joint advocacy project with the National Park, the Heritage in Young Hands program. However, before we head down that path, allow me to provide a bit of background on the resort's involvement with the project. The Shangri-La Yanuda Island, Fiji, previously known as the Shangri-La's Fijian Resort and Spa, is located on a 109-acre island in Vuhu district in the Nandranga province. The resort was established in 1967 and is one of the longest running tourism establishments, especially in the region. 90% of our staff are from surrounding communities. The resort is also closely linked to the community of Vuhu, as for generations, the members of this community have grown with the development of tourism through the hotel and also throughout the Coral Coast region. The resort is committed to the immediate welfare of its surrounding community and environment, and has always kept the interest of its communities at heart through direct and also indirect contributions. Location-wise, we are based southwest of Vunidilo along the Coral Coast. It's about a 45-minute drive from Nandi and 10 minutes away from our dearest friends in the Sigatoka Sand Dunes National Park. The resort boasts of a wide range of activities and experiences for our visitors. So in line with our commitment to biodiversity conservation, the Shangri-La Group launched Sanctuary, Shangri-La's Care for Nature project. And at the resort, we have a reef care project which aims to propagate and revive much of the coveted coral life of the Fijian Islands. So since 2009, the Coral Gardens project in Shangri-La's Marine Education Center, labeled 10 on the map, was open to both guests and local students to create awareness on the fragility of our coral reefs and highlight the ecological relationships of our coastal habitats. That is the forests, watersheds, mangroves, and coral reefs, and how we are all connected, basically. So in summary, it's just the ridge to reef concept integrated into our awareness. And this awareness is coupled with hands-on activities such as mangrove planting, coral planting, fish house building, guided snorkel tour, nature walks, to name a few. So these activities create long-lasting experiences and impressions for our visitors, both local and international. So since 2011, we were already partnering with Jason and the team at the Sigatoka Sand Dunes. Community-based activities such as beach cleanups, mangrove litter patrols, school environment club planting events were organized to create general environmental awareness. We would often engage our guests, staff, school environment clubs, and the greater community. It was from these early activities we realized we needed to develop a program that would allow students to be engaged for a longer period of time, because as time would allow us to nurture learning. The 1-hour planting events on World Environment Day or Earth Hour was not enough. So we also noted that the only way to create change was to create positive influences with the younger generation. And that's when Heritage in Young Hands was initiated. The Heritage in Young Hands is a 5-year environmental education program that provides an opportunity for primary school students of the Nandranga province to make a real difference in their lives and their surroundings. This program differs from many of the out-of-classroom learning experiences in that it empowers children by developing the students' natural inclination to our natural and cultural world. It develops their capacity and also their creativity, their roles as stewards of our environment and future, and so forth. Our first outreach program was launched during the Term 1 school holidays in 2016. that delivery would not have been made possible without the support of the Ministry of Education, Oiska Youth Training Center in the South, the Nandrunga Provincial Office, the Sigatoka National Fire Authority, and the Sigatoka Town Council. Our target audience were 5 schools within the corridor between the resort and the national park. Majority of these students live in nearby communities who were either resource owners or resource users. The key aims of the program are to develop a mutual link between a protected area, a protected site, a local environmental center, a resort that has an active CSR program, and a local primary school. Another key aim is to deliver a program of educational sessions linked to the curriculum based around conservation, environmental issues like nature, energy, waste, climate change, and sustainable living, consumption, and how we behave and impact our planet. So the third key aim, to empower children to link logically and creatively to make positive changes to their school and communities through hands-on involvement. To instill pride, responsibility, and cooperation, and also to develop and grow over the years with primary school students involving as many children as possible. We wanted to create a sense of pride for these children that live by Fiji's only national park. The after-school learning program is centered around 3 main elements: the head, hands, and heart. This approach is an action-oriented learning process where it encourages students to touch, to be more hands-on, to know, learn and understand, and to care, to have empathy for all living organisms. The Heritage in Young Hands program has 3 learning levels: Year 1, whom we call the freshmen; Year 2, the trainees; and Year 3, junior ranger. So to be part of the Heritage in Young Hands program, the students are encouraged to take their own initiative and apply. Successful students join as freshmen. So these freshmen or new recruits then undergo a 1-year general environmental awareness training. The training covers the following themes: heritage, stewardship, civic pride, volunteerism, and life skills. So as they progress to Year 2 as trainees, they get the opportunity to work closely with the National Trust of Fiji Rangers. This program is specific and hands-on. Students' learning sessions are modeled after the National Trust of Fiji's own ranger training program and covers areas such as plants, animal safety, ranger roles, tour guiding, research, and volunteerism. This 1-year training program further develops their knowledge and skills and prepares them to become junior rangers. The Junior Ranger program started in 2018. It's a 3-year-long program modeled on the education for sustainable development pillars, which is environment, social, and economics. The program broadens the Junior Rangers' environmental education experiences, incorporating the social and economic elements that play an important role in our stewardship of the planet. As you can see, the images, the Junior Rangers are the one in green, so they have spent 3 or more years with us. So in order to graduate at the end of the year and earn a conservation badge, because they all get a badge each, students are required to at least have 75% attendance and participate in one civic engagement project, which could be a planting event or a beach cleanup event, which is already incorporated in our activity calendar. Junior Rangers who have completed the 5-year-long program successfully then become peer educators and continue working with the heritage team in facilitation for future heritage programs. Another exciting endeavor was the inclusion of the Waisali Rainforest Reserve in July of 2018. Ranger Lekima, who is also here on the one in the green bula shirt, who looks after the site, took part in the Train the Trainers workshop organized early that year of 2018. His great enthusiasm for the heritage program helped pave the way for its implementation. So that year, the 10 students from Waisali Vanuatu were invited to come down to Sigatoka to graduate with the rest of the students. It was indeed an exciting time for these youngins. For most of them, it was the first time they ever traveled to Vunidilo to visit their country's capital, the Sigatoka sand dunes, and also the resort. But most importantly, to mix with other like-minded young students. For them, it was quite an adventure. So as I bring this to a close, I'd like to highlight some key takeaways from this partnership. Communication, partnership, and alignment of ideals is very important in making it possible for the National Trust of Fiji and Shangri-La Yanuda Island, Fiji, to roll out this program. So today, the two organizations, they form the Heritage in Young Hands 14, which is responsible for the implementation and sustainability of the program in Sigatoka and other areas that the program has extended to. The team brings with it knowledge and experiences from different fields of work, ranging from the land to sea, including organizational actions at the community and national level. The last takeaway, the program provides the opportunity for this wealth of knowledge and experiences to be summed up into an effective, non-formal environmental educational program for children of the Nuando province, allowing them to become agents of change within their classrooms, their homes, their villages, and communities. Vinaka.
Vinaka Vakalevu Meroni for sharing with us those beautiful stories from Sigatoka. And I'm sure with the others, we all agree, such a beautiful way to involve our young people as well, similar to what Elia had shared earlier, as well as Willie Kesa in terms of capacity building. And what a beautiful way to look at communication, community, as well as creating a caretaker spirit for everyone concerned, but particularly for our young ones. I have a minute if there's anyone out there who wants to ask any questions or make a comment from our beautiful audience who are still patient and listening beautifully. Vinaka Vakalevu for supporting this session. Okay, Vinaka. Maybe if we will go to our last speaker, and then if anyone in the audience has something to share, please feel free to type it in the chat. And if you want to send it to me, and then I can ask Meroni after our next speaker's presentation. Yes, so Vinaka Vakalevu Meroni for doing such a wonderful work, particularly with heritage in young hands and seeing those young ones. I just wanted to also maybe very quickly, if I can grab 1 minute from your time, in terms of the children of Waisali. It's just so lovely that they can be able to leave Vanuatu to come to Vunidilo. What was the feeling like when the two teams on the two islands met?
Oh, it was an exciting moment for the children, especially since they're my tawus. I made sure they got spoiled when they got here. So yeah, it was lovely to see them, and because we had gone over there for the launch, so it was wonderful to see their faces when they came down for their graduation. And yes, they were super excited to come visit, especially the very exciting, the national park, because it's in their school books, and the ranger would talk about it. So they're super excited. So they even got to come and spend the day and also got to use the facilities at the resort. So they were really spoiled on their visitation. Vinaka.
Oh, Vinaka Wakalevo. Thank you so much, Meroni. And I think I've got Christine. Christine, sorry, I missed your hand. Christine has a question here. Christine Fang. I think the question there says, how, yeah, go, Christine.
Yeah, Mbula Tarisi, hope you well.
Mbula Vinaka, lovely to see you.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you so much for all the wonderful presentations. But just following on from the presentation from Shangri-La, from Meroni. So just how engaged is the private sector in terms of supporting our national heritage areas, national heritage sites? And this goes to all the speakers. And how can we strengthen the engagement of the private sector, as we can see how important it is from Meroni's presentation. Thank you, Tarisi.
Vinaka, Christine?
Well, you know, thank you, Christine, for that question. What I'd like to add to this, even prior to all of this engagement with the heritage in young hands, I mean, we must not forget also the way that was paid, even with our predecessors, our mentors who had started all this engagement and relationship before us. Our former, here at the resort, even our former managing director and former GM, Mr. Rendika Ngerengere Tambua, he played a big role too, supporting the National Trust. And yes, we do whatever we can to support the heritage site, especially with the Sigatoka sand dunes. With not well, a couple of years ago, we did hold a fundraising event to help support build the boundaries, the fencing at the sand dunes. But yes, I believe, yeah, as a private sector, and should engage more with protecting our heritage sites here in Fiji. So yes, I agree with you, Christine Fang. So that's a conversation too we should take up to our our Fiji Tourism Association and so forth. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Unless anyone else on this forum would like to add on to that. Naka
Meroni. Yeah, anyone else from Elia or Jason or Vili? I think we've got one more minute or two if anyone wants to share before I hand over to Sulian. Yeah, I think to add on to what Meroni has said, that's a good question, Christine. I think what Shangri-La, is doing is a wonderful pilot project. If it's working for that area and through the support work from the hotel, then that could be a good example for other sector of the community to also contribute, in their own way. But I think there are other hotels and resorts as well in different parts of Fiji who may be doing some similar work. Maybe there'll be a nice way for the National Trust of Fiji to gather some of similar projects that are taking place. And that can be a follow-up forum, I think, from this forum that we're doing now. What a wonderful way that all these practitioners and representatives are here sharing their stories. So Christine, your question can encourage the others to maybe shoulder tap or look at other areas in Vunidilo and around Vunidilo, even in the outer islands who may be doing something similar. But if they're not, maybe they should learn something from Sigatoka and through the work of the Sigatoka Sand Dunes and the Shangri-La Hotel. Yeah, Vinaka Wakalev Meroni. Okay, and now the time is here for our last speaker, Suliana Sendis, who is logging in from the beautiful capital city, or the old capital city of Fiji, Levuka. Vinaka Wakalev, and welcome to the session, Suliana.
Vinaka Tarisi. Before I begin, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Director for National Trust and the sponsors and Tarisi, coordinator, and for allowing Levuka to be mentioned in this segment. I'm a fourth generation family member living in this family home of mine on Mission Hill. And this building is registered in the Register of Titles, was registered in the Register of Titles in 1876, still standing today. Levuka was listed on the heritage site in 2013. Unfortunately, many people misconstrue heritage as a barrier to change and developments. We realize that climate change is inevitable because it is man-induced. But heritage is not a barrier in building resilience. In fact, it is a conduit to it. My theme is building climate resilience through heritage, and hopefully this will come through during this presentation. In front of you is a picture of the former capital. My first slide this morning is the town of Levuka. And it started to emerge when the indigenous village of Tutongo in the center of the present town and Levuka village to the north was settled in the 1830s by beachcombers, facilitating trade between indigenous Fijians and Europeans. The structure of the town grew sporadically over the indigenous village structures. And of course, by 1874, Levuka was announced as the capital of Fiji and had become a bustling trade port. During this colonial era, the wharf was built together with Beach Street shop buildings among trees that line the beachfront in the town. And we have a picture of the town on the left side of the screen, just part of the town. Town buildings comprises storage facilities, commercial, social, educational, religious, and residential properties built into single or two stories from corrugated iron, weatherboards, timber, or masonry. The structures of the buildings were such that many were able to stand the Category 5 Winston in 2016. And this has encouraged a lot of homeowners' resilience to build back accordingly. Many that were destroyed were more recently, many that were destroyed during the hurricane were either recent buildings or buildings that had been repaired haphazardly. In 1875, the 6th Company of the Royal Engineers arrived in Levuka to organize the structure of the town. All land was surveyed and new recreational facilities from the wharf to bowling lawns and cricket pitch were built. More importantly, the Royal Engineers constructed a seawall to protect the town's main street, and they walled in sides of cross-flowing creeks as can be seen on the last two photos, the two photos on the right-hand side of the screen. The stone and concrete, the reason these, I suppose that the engineers walled in the sides of the creek was to create canals to prevent flooding. The stone and concrete seawall used to run the length of Beach Street, linking to other streets and lanes, branching down slopes and following the contours. If you look on the map on the left, the light blue lines are the two main creeks, the two major creeks that ran down from the hills to the beach. Immediately behind the town, which is, and it's not shown on the map here, is a smaller creek. But I appreciate the foresight of the Royal Engineers in building the drainage system according to the layout of the town in harmony with the hills, so that each time there is a very heavy downpour, the water comes through the drains under the small bridges. You'll see there's quite a few small bridges on the main drain on Mission Hill, but even up on the hills to the north side of the town, there are also small bridges over drains, and the water runs under that into the main creeks and out to the sea. This, of course, has saved the town time and again from flooding. In 2016, following the Category 5 tropical cyclone Winston, several studies were made by different entities to assess damage, including vulnerability assessments. Unfortunately, a lot of stakeholders have not seen those assessments yet. We have faced problems of a lack of access to compatible building material. We also face problems of a lack of skilled labor and the risk of loss of authenticity through improper reconstruction. Buildings which have not been fully repaired and still remain exposed are deteriorating, while obstruction to drainage outlets within the town and the seaside and pollution are contributing factors to this decline. Of course, we need skilled tradesmen. We need proper building materials. We also need policies for disaster risk reduction for the town, not kept in offices, but through awareness programs to stakeholders. We need an assessment of the old drainage system, and where needs be, repair works done. Unfortunately, this is not all. But the point I wish to make is that the built fabric of the town is obviously significant, but they should not be looked at in isolation. The town infrastructure, the materials used for buildings, the management of the hill slopes, the drains, and the waterways are all important, and the needs and functions of the community are equally important. A lot of flooding caused recently is because of poor management of the hill slopes. People have cleared and planted on the hill slopes, and this has caused soil erosion and drainage blockages. Terracing can be taught to avoid further deterioration. Unfortunately, it has not been done. Even the buildings of the new buildings and of roads and homes have, I'm sure, been approved without the inspection of the drainage system and inspection of the land, if it is strong enough to hold the building, because this has also resulted in landslides and rapid runoffs evident today. Land cleared for buildings have not had retaining walls built, and this also has contributed to the landslides we are having. For Levuka to build its resilience to the impacts of climate change, we also need to change our approach. The town as a whole is interconnected to each other, to the rest of the island of Overlau and beyond. The people, the streets, the waterways, the bridges, the buildings, the parks, the schools, the churches, and so on. All places have stories, they have histories, they have values that transcend beyond the physical structures. And it is time that we acknowledge that our community well-being is of utmost concern, that we look at the intangible heritage of the people of this town and have a holistic approach to the development of tourism and the economy and other aspects for the town. It is not only about Levuka, but it's also about the island of Ovalau. If we expand the scope of view, we can openly discuss issues that were perhaps placed under the table. How can we manage change? What can change? Through diversity, dialogue, and inclusivity comes strength and resilience. And that's our objective. My last slide is knowing makes a difference. Knowing makes a difference. They say knowledge opens doors, but for our little ones, knowledge may be beyond their comprehension due to their tender age. So too with the elderly. But getting them to participate in activities, as we have just heard from Mirioni and the other participants before us, Jason, it is a better way of learning. Activities and planned children's programs by the National Trust of Levuka Office, Fiji, through the Levuka office here, have engaged both the young and the old within the town. And the main aim, as seen there, was to, one, teach the young people on the importance of cleaning up the Levuka foreshore and planting mangroves to protect the shoreline. Number two, the bottom two photographs, the JICA Hokkaido group that was here involved the community in learning and appreciating the preservation and restoration of the old structures. In this case, the Ovalau Club, which is an icon building of Levuka, was used. And under the supervision of the master builder from JICA Hokkaido and Peter Granton of Australia, we are now looking for tenders for the Ovalau Club. Timber from the government homes destroyed on Mokongai in 2016, as shown in Elia's slide, was brought across and used to replace the missing walls and rafters. These activities have helped build the enthusiasm and understanding of the resilience of our volunteers and increase their appetite to learn more through a hands-on experience. Finally, ma'am, the heritage fabric of Levuka forms the basis to interweave the connections between community knowledge, traditions and practices, stories, and the intangible heritage of all peoples and communities in the town and on the island of Ovalau. Yes, to build resilient communities for climate change resilience, Levuka has to look beyond the infrastructure. Only when these are all considered together as the landscape of Levuka and all stakeholders put their hands together, can the town effectively continue to contribute towards building resilient communities for the region. Thank you, ma'am. Naka. Can they hear us?
Vinaka Wakaleo Sara Suliana for a very moving presentation from Levuka, the old capital of Fiji. Vinaka Wakaleo for reminding us on what is important. You highlighted the importance of the intangible cultural heritage, and not only should we give a lot of our attention on the infrastructure, but it's the people and it's the stories that counts the most. Vinaka Wakalevu to everyone also for your questions and comments. So I will also give a minute to see if anyone has any comment or question for Suliana. Yeah, so I can see the responses has been done from the rest of the speakers. Just so beautiful to see the connections coming through. If I can, yeah, Vinaka Christine. Okay, so there's a question here from Christine. Vinaka Christine, she says very informative and important presentation, Suliana. So the question she says, can you elaborate on how the heritage buildings were made to withstand the Category 5 cyclones without compromising the heritage structure?
I suppose it's the way that it was built and the materials that were used. This is Oregon timber, and it's not like the new Oregon you have today, which is about 4 or 5 years old, and then they cut and sell. These would have been 50 to 100 years old before they started chopping down. But if you also look at the structure of the building, in the strappings, they used cast iron to strap the timber down. Whereas today, they just use, the strapping is just cut from the flat iron, and it's so thin. Secondly, in a lot of homes, we have lattice towards the back of the house and the side of the house. Now, a lot of people have torn down those lattices, but we only found recently that one of the reasons the lattice was put up is so that when the wind blows into your house during the hurricane, it is not contained within the house, but goes out through the lattice. Because when the wind builds up within the house, that's when you lose your roof or sides of the walls get blown out, etc. I hope that answers your question. And it was the workmanship, of course.
It goes back to the knowledge and the skills of those who build those structures. And again, Levuka is a wonderful example for all of us, since it's recognized as a World Heritage Site, and we are looking at Levuka as an example for many other heritage sites to be also listed. For Fiji, their potential in the country, and that is a wonderful as well for Levuka to be included in this lineup. Madam Director Elizabeth Eresito for definitely involving Levuka for today. So I think we're going to wrap up now because we have reached the 90 minutes that we are allocated. So to those of you who are commenting and listening in as well, Vinaka Vakalevu for staying with us for the last 90 minutes. Can we all just clap and acknowledge our amazing presenters? Woohoo! Vinaka Vakalevu. Yeah. What a wonderful presentation you all did. We all learned so much from each one of you. And as the questions and the comments were coming through, there's still room for us to be better. What we are doing is not what we wanted to be at right now, but we can be better. We can be better. And I know this COP26 is a global event that is reminding us on the importance of people. Everyone plays a very important role. If we go back to Vilikesa's presentation and the importance of involving the voices of the landowners and involving them in decision-making, so important. For the work you're all doing in for the Soviet Basin in Nantakuni and the Tikina Waimaro. Elia, again, for the amazing work you do with just a few people in the Department of Archaeology, and you have to cover the whole of Fiji. And with the minimal funding you have, you still manage to do it with a smile on your face. And we know that we still have to give more support. So for those of you who are listening in, if you have access to funding, please give it to the National Trust of Fiji. Give it to the Fiji Museum. Give it to Levuka. We need your support. Okay, we need your support. Jason Tutani for, again, amazing work you do at the Sigatoka sand dunes. The amazing walks you do on that beautiful beach of Sigatoka. Now that's heaven on earth, Jason? So for, again, championing, the cause of looking after the heritage site, the unique mixed heritage site of Fiji. And to Meroni, involving the Shangri-La Hotel and the corporate support. And the question posed by Christine, definitely there's more support that needs to be done by the private sector to support the work that is already been done, given by the government of Fiji. And last but not least, with the community voice from Levuka. What a wonderful way to end this presentation from someone who's been living in Levuka for 67 years and still living in that building that was built in 1876. That's a testament to that story, right? The workmanship and the indigenous and the knowledge that was passed down from generation to generation for those who built that heritage building in Levuka. So on this note, I would like to thank the director of the National Trust again, Elizabeth Eresito, Madam, for involving all of us in this session. Also thanking the organizers in Scotland and the sponsors, ADB and GIZ. Maybe before I hand it over back to the director of the National Trust, if I can just end this session on a Maori whakatauki or proverb, which goes like this. He aha te mea nui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Okay, so for those, some of us who live in New Zealand, this will test our Maori language. And it's translated as, what is the most important thing in the world? And the response is, it is the people, it is the people, it is the people. So keep doing what you're doing, keep getting better and better in what you're doing. And definitely we need more support to contribute to the amazing work that each of you are doing. So Vinaka Vakalevu for your presentation today. And I will hand it over back to Madam Elizabeth Eresito. Vinaka, Director.
Well, thank you very much to the panelists and our moderator. Thank you to ADB and GIZ for the sponsorship. And I hope that everyone's enjoyed the session and have some important takeaways, which will be summarized and sent across for those who wake up in the morning in Scotland. Vinaka Vakalevu.
Vinaka Vakalevu, Sarah, everyone for joining in today. Maybe if I can play the song again, Vanondo Moni, to conclude our song. We started with the Vanondo Moni song, and we're going to end with the song as well. So this is from all of us to you all. So let us play the Vanondo Moni song, so you will enjoy this. This is from our presenter to you all. So I will share. So hopefully.
Press mine on to record it.
Hope you can see the screen.
Give it to me.
Yes, Vinaka Wakalevu to all of you, and a warm thank you from Hawaii. I really enjoyed being the facilitator for today. And I also want to acknowledge some of my students from the University of Hawaii that are also listening here. Vinaka Wakalevu Tori, Mahalo, and some and the rest that have left to go to their other classes. I'm just so happy that you're able to join in here as well. And thanks to all our Fijian brothers and sisters who are joining in from different parts of the world. Vinaka Wakalevu for being here, and our host as well in the Philippines, as well as our host in Scotland. Definitely a big thank you again to the sponsors, ADB and GIZ, for sponsoring this session. So all the very best for today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and it's good afternoon from me here in Hawaii. Mahalo nui ni sa Moderator. Vinaka.
Naka.
Mode Lia, Mode Veroni, Mode Vilkestre, Isa, Mode Suliana, Isa, do Mode Minus Prep, Naka,
Naka.
Naka Christine, Naka Sarote,
Mode Tarisi.
Naka, Mode, Isa, Naka Chodinyo Nyukula, Naka for the support. Thank you, Marisa. Thanks, Christian, for recording.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Nikki. Right.
Naka Cassandra. Yeah.
Mother.
That was a very nice presentation.
Oh, I'm glad it was good, Marissa. So I'll fill in the summary and send it across to you.
Sure.
Yes. Right. Thank you. Oh, hello, Sarote. Thank you for listening in.
Oh, Vinaka Isa. See? So what a wonderful way to get beautiful snippets of what everybody's doing. And definitely, yeah, we'll look for extra funding. Elia, we'll send them off to the Fiji Museum and the National Trust.
Well, Tarisi, today at 3 o'clock, just a few more hours to go, we'll be signing a grant with the U.S. Embassy for our collections.
Yes. I'll be coming to sit in there.
Congratulations. See, Vinaka Fiji Museum. Thanks to the U.S. Embassy, and yeah, we'll try and send more money from Uncle Biden from here.
Thank you so much, Director Tarisi.
Yes, we'll see you later, Elia. I'll be coming.
Naka.
Naka Lia, all the best.
Naka,
Yeah.
Mode
Lia. Yeah.
So, the session, the recorded session will be available on the hub.
Okay. It's very
Sign in and, I mean, they can just watch it. Those who missed out, yeah. Great. Thank you very much. So, Tarisi, turn off now? Yes.
Sandon, Mode. Yeah.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yeah. Thanks, Marissa. Bye.
Bye.